We're back here, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Zach Gelb flying solo here with you, taking up until noon Eastern time, where the Temple Sports Hour will come your way. I met this man last year at the Super Bowl up in Radio Row in New York, and he is fantastic, and that's Steve DeOssie, the pre- and post-host of Patriots football on WEEI. You could also see him on Channel 7 up in Boston, and he's also a Super Bowl champion. Won a Super Bowl with those New York football Giants and played a few years with the Pats. Steve, great to talk to you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well, Zach. All my friends up in the Northeast, I got out of town just in time. It's tough when everybody's going through up there, especially up in Boston. But it's good. It's good to be down here. It's good to be in the Super Bowl atmosphere.
Well, you're lucky. How's the weather there today? How is it?
It's a little colder today. It's about 72 degrees right now, but it's early, so it'll warm up a little bit.
You bastard. I'm so jealous. I really am. I was supposed to fly out.
It's not all, fun and games down here. I had 15 minutes of rain on the golf course yesterday. It really threw me off.
Oh, you poor soul. I was supposed to fly out last night, and my flight got canceled. I was going to fly out of New York at JFK, and now I can't even get out there until late Thursday, so I'm just going to cancel the trip, and I'm all bummed out, and I'm bummed that I don't get to see you, and we're not doing this interview in person on Radio Row.
Yeah, I tell you what, that's a fun time on Radio Row. You think, I've been doing it forever, and you think it gets old after a while, and every year something else happens to make it fun, and there's new characters involved every year. It's a good time. The NFL really has done it right. I can think back to Super Bowl 25 in Tampa, and just it looks like a high school production compared to what's going on now. It's just an amazing thing. The press is mobilized, the NFL is mobilized. Everybody's down here to do all sorts of things, and there's just no lack of things going on both in the media and outside of the media.
My favorite memories really at Radio Row is getting to talk to the former players and hear what they recall from when they were playing. And you got to play under both Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick with your time at the New York Giants. And, hey, those must have been a fun time. You did win a Super Bowl where Scott Norwood missed that field goal. And last year you were telling us that beach ball story, which was just hilarious how you got the nickname Beach Ball. But what is your favorite Bill Parcells memory?
Well, I think... When you think of Bill Parcells, one of the things he told me when I first got there is, and I won the starting job, and Harry Carson had just retired. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen the field because Harry was one of the great all-time linebackers. But I was going head-to-head with Gary Reasons for the job, and I ended up winning the job. And Parcells calls me into his office. He says, "Look, I don't like looking like an idiot. I can do that well enough on my own. I don't need your help. Now you're making 1/3 of. I just gave Gary a new contract. You're making 1/3 of what he's making, right? and I'm starting you instead. So I already look a little dumb for giving him that nice contract. Don't make me look even more stupid if I screw it up." I said, "Well, Bill, we can solve this real easy. You can just give me a 300% raise." He goes, "Then I would look extremely stupid. But that's the last thing I want to do." So Bill Parcells was a great motivator, and it was strange because I came from Tom Landry, who was a pretty good motivator, but it was almost a fear of God motivating you. Bill Parcells, if he had 50 different personalities on the team that needed 50 different ways to motivate, he'd find out what would motivate you, and that was a sign of a great coach, and I really, really enjoyed my time with him. And then up in New England, I retired, moved home, and he asked me to come join the Patriots, and so I went into the office and I talked, and he offered me a minimum wage contract, and I said, "Bill, what's going on? It's not like I'm homeless or something. What are you offering me nothing here to play? I'm not some homeless guy begging on the street here." So we came to a contract. The next day we have a little small press conference, and Bill Parcells starts out the press conference, in inimitable Bill Parcells fashion, and says, "Well, I'm driving to work one day, and I see this guy on the corner of the street with a sign that says, 'We'll long snap for food.' And I realized it's one of my old players, so what am I going to do?" Of course I had to hire him. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve DeOssie. I was like, "Yeah, you're kidding me. Not only do you hammer me, but you hammer me with my own jokes, He was,
my God.
He was amongst the best.
That's fantastic stuff. And you had Lawrence Taylor on those Giants teams, and I was listening to an interview that Lawrence Taylor did in New York this year. He was hosting a show with Sid Rosenberg, and Michael Strahan was actually a guest. And Michael Strahan was recalling how when he was a rookie, he had to go into Lawrence Taylor's house, and he said it was one of the most frightening things he's ever seen. Did you ever go to Lawrence Taylor's house?
Yes, I've been to his house, his apartments. I've been a few places, and it's a little curious and a little strange and a little intimidating. Just the fact that I was sitting there hanging out and I was buddies and teammates with one of the great all-time players in the history of the league was kind of intimidating. But Lawrence was a different guy. I mean, he was obviously danced to his own tune, but the fact that he was, besides being one of the greatest teammates I ever had, he was an unbelievable leader. He never liked to let people know that he was working out, and because he always wanted people to think he was born Superman, And there were so many times, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, me and him would be at the gym at Giant Stadium getting a workout in, because he wanted everybody to leave the building, and he wanted nobody to realize that he actually had to work out to be as great as he was. He was just a phenomenal individual to be with, and Strahan, to be intimidated by anyone. Strahan's rookie year was a lot of fun too. That was his rookie year was my final year with the Giants, and then his final year with the Giants was my son's rookie year with the Giants. So I think that kind of prompted him into retirement.
How about that? Yeah. As Steve DeOssie is our guest. Super Bowl champion, does the pre and post show on WEI up in Boston, Channel 7 as well. Does a fantastic job covering the Patriots. I have to ask you, we all know that Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells will be linked together in some way forever with the relationship that they have had. What was your first impressions when you met the hoodie, though, Bill Belichick?
Well, the first impression was within 2 days, I realized I was with a superior football intellect. And now realize I come from a very, very great X's and O's coach in Tom Landry and Gene Stallings and Ernie Stautner and all those guys. They were tremendous X's and O's guys. But immediately I realized that Bill Belichick was different. And I don't want to say better, but just more insight. And then I started seeing some of the things he did that I never saw before. He actually, when I first got the starting job, we're sitting there in film and with the whole defense, and he asked me my opinion. He says, Steve, can you do this if you need to do this? And of course, you're a football player. You say, yeah, coach, I'll do whatever you need, coach, I'll do it. He stops the film, flips the lights on, gets up in the front of the room and says, look, DeOssie, I don't know how you did it down there in Texas, but when I ask your opinion, I need an honest answer. I need you to let me know. I'm not going to hold it against you if you say you can't do it, but if you say you can do it and you can't do it, then I'm going to hold it against you. And I never saw a coach actually invite input from his players or ask his players about what they thought of something. When Tom Landry gave a game plan, it was like Moses coming down from the mountain and with the commandments, and you just took it and you did it. And Bill Belichick, Bill Belichick was the guy that sought the input of his players. Then you realize, well, that makes sense. There's an asset, an informational asset that he doesn't have. He never did play in the NFL, and never could see the things that a Lawrence Taylor or somebody like that could see. So he wanted their input, and I thought that was, I don't know if it was revolutionary at the time, but what it was something that I had never experienced, and I look at it as Bill Belichick using whatever information he can gather to try to help his team win.
What I love about you, Steve, is that you're such an honest person when you're talking football and telling us these stories, because sometimes you deal with some players that show a lot of loyalty. I'm not saying you're not loyal to Bill Belichick, because I know you think he's one of the best coaches ever, but there's some players that wouldn't answer this kind of question. But what's your reaction to this whole Deflategate that has happened?
Well, first off, it's an overreaction for a few reasons. First off, Bill Belichick and the Patriots aren't very well liked across the country. I personally have seen quarterbacks and equipment guys work with the footballs for many, many years. I personally, having snapped hundreds of field goals, hundreds of punts, hundreds of extra points, have felt the difference in footballs all the time. Was something done? I don't know. The evidence seems to be leaning that way. Was Belichick involved? I'm not sure that kind of minutia is something that Belichick is involved with. But the other part of that equation is that Bill Belichick has always been on top of everything that goes on with his team. And the situation I see there is that they're doing what, similar to similar with Spygate. If you remember Spygate, it wasn't about people forget that Spygate was not about taping the sideline, the opposing team's sideline. It was where the camera was when they were taping the sideline. You were allowed to tape the sideline all you like. That's not the issue. It's where you put the camera that was the issue. And I have a feeling this situation is a similar thing. This is Tom Brady has found out how he likes the footballs, and probably 12, 13 years ago, the equipment managers realized, okay, this is how Tom likes the ball, and let's do this, and he's been doing it forever. I don't think it changes things whatsoever. I don't think it takes away from the legacy. I think that it's a scenario where if it's illegal, rectify it. If it's a violation, fine them, move along. But is it a deciding factor in how good the Patriots are? I don't think so. I think the Patriots are a very good team, have been a premier franchise for 15 years. If you're telling me that 1 or 2 PSI is the difference between Hall of Fame careers and not, then I think that's a misstatement.
I agree with you because I've said it on Fox 29 here in Philadelphia with Howard Eskin a few days ago when I was on his program that, hey, cheating or not, Brady and Belichick are the best QB coach combination to ever play this game, and their success and their wins do back it up. And everyone said, hey, the Patriots, since Spygate, haven't won anything. Well, they've been the most winningest team in the league. I know they got the 2 Super Bowls and they lost, but they are just such a dominant pieces together. And I take a look at this. I agree with you. It's being blown out of proportion. But what I think it is, out of anything, is maybe it's a little bit of arrogance by these 2 guys knowing they could get away with it, although it's against the rules.
You know what? That could very well be part of it. It also could be simply something that they've done for a decade or more. It could be something that they didn't even think of in that situation. It could be something that that was overlooked as much as, I don't know, a guy. I had a thing where I wore brand new cleats every football game that I played in, simply because I could, and I grew up poor, and I liked the idea of wearing new shoes every week. It's something that you just did and you didn't even think about, and it's become a big mess. And it does take it is a hit to the Patriots. It's a hit to the legacy. It's a hit to the organization, and Bob Kraft absolutely doesn't like that at all. But when you look at the overall structure of what's going on with the Patriots, the success that they've had over the last 14, 15 years has very, very little to do with taping a team sideline or inflating or deflating a football. It's a scenario where Bill Belichick is usually the most prepared coach in the league, and you saw it in that Baltimore game with the Ravens. That was a scenario where I couldn't believe that they weren't able to handle that. All you do, I remember very well with that. All you do in that case, Bill Belichick told me when I first got the starting job at the Giants, he said, if you see anything crazy, if you see anything that you don't understand, just call stack cover 2, which is something we could play against everything. And everybody knew how to play it, and it didn't matter what we were doing. I said, well, what about a timeout? What if he goes, don't call a timeout. You don't have to. Play cover 2. It doesn't matter. We'll do whatever we have to do, and we'll figure out as we go along. The panic that I saw on Baltimore, Harbaugh got out coached and then just started yapping about it. I think Bill Belichick's the most prepared coach in the league. I think his team is the most prepared. I think their success. And listen, I love the fact that my Giants and my son were able to win that, mostly because of my son. We were able to win those 2 Super Bowls. But those took some unbelievable freak scenarios, especially the first one down here in Arizona. The helmet catch was you're a helmet catch away from Bill Belichick and Tom Brady be considered the all-time best quarterback combination, coach combination in the league. So I don't know. There's a lot of things involved, but this is still a hit to the legacy, no matter what, nationally. Now, up in Boston, it's not a hit whatsoever. It's not a hit. At first, there were some fans that were like, oh, not again. But then, in true Boston fashion, I'm sure you see that down in Philadelphia, the same thing. It's okay if we fight each other. It's not okay if you fight us. If I can fight my brother all day, but if somebody else tries to fight my brother, I got my brother's back. And that's kind of how it evolved in Boston. At first, people were a little ticked off about it, but then when the national media kicked in and started piling up on the Patriots, that's when the Patriots fans all got their dander up and decided to back the Patriots almost unanimously.
No question about that as we're talking to Steve DeOssie. Two more questions with the Super Bowl champ. Brady, we all know he's not afraid of anyone. Aaron Rodgers, with one arm of Richard Sherman, wouldn't throw his side of the field in that second half. How do the Pats attack Richard Sherman in this game? Do they?
I think they look first at what Seattle's trying to do. Is Seattle going to be trying to take away Gronkowski? Are they going to be spending a lot of resources to make sure that Gronk doesn't run wild on them? If that's the case, then they got to start looking elsewhere. They got to start looking at Edelman and LaFell and maybe even Vereen out of the backfield. There's a reason that quarterbacks and offensive coordinators don't go after guys like Sherman and Darrelle Revis. It's because they're that good. And while their numbers in terms of interceptions might not stack up to some of these other guys, it's because they get thrown at a huge amount less than other cornerbacks. And Bill Belichick's always been of the mind, and Tom Brady is the same way. You know, if I'm looking at a door, do I have to smash my head to get through that door, or can I turn the doorknob and walk through? They're not gonna try to reinvent football. They're gonna do what they think they can get away with. And and I don't really believe that's going at Sherman. You're not gonna make a living, and that depends on how healthy he is too with the arm and everything, the elbow. But you don't make a living going at guys like that. It's just eventually. It's the 4 or 5 passes you might complete on him could be thrown away because eventually he's going to get that pick and it's going to cause a problem for you. So I don't see the Patriots going after him unless they have no other option.
Steve DeOssie is our guest. One more question with you, Steve. You've been in Bill Belichick locker rooms. Take me through what is the message right now with Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia when it comes from a defensive player's perspective going up against Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch and the bevy of options that the Seahawks have?
Well, they understand a few things. First off, you've got to get a lot of guys around Marshawn Lynch. You can't expect to be able to tackle him with one guy in space. Because he'll either run over you, which we've seen him do, or he's very capable of putting a move on you. So, but if they don't, I don't think they mind yardage between the 20s. It's when they get into that red zone that they have to clamp down, and part of that's going to be keeping Russell Wilson in the pocket. If you're capable of doing that, then that's going to, he's not as good a pocket quarterback as he is when he rolls out to his right. When he rolls to his right, not just him, his receivers have it down pat. His receivers. You look sometimes at the end zone films, and you think that receivers sometimes, when a quarterback scrambles, the receivers just run around like crazy. You watch the Seahawks; they have a very, very coordinated attack out of every route package that they run. If their quarterback breaks out to the right or to the left, it's absolutely a coordinated effort on where these receivers are going. One guy back to the quarterback, one guy's going to the sideline. One guy's breaking deep. They're very. There's a method to even when a quarterback breaks down and starts scrambling. There's a method. They have a plan for it. Pete Carroll. I played for Pete Carroll too at the Jets for a little while. Pete Carroll's another very, very smart coach too. So they've done a good job. I think the Patriots are going to end up trying to do everything they can to keep Russell Wilson in the pocket. But you can't let Lynch dominate the game for 160, 170 yards unless those yards are just in between the 20-yard lines and they're settling for field goals.
I got 45 more seconds with you. Real quickly, did you try to ask Marshawn Lynch a question yesterday at Media Day?
I did not. I'm of the same mind. I'm not going to bang my head against the door when I can walk through it by turning the knob. He's not going to give you anything. I think he's probably amused by it now. I think he's made it into an unbelievable game. He's got more press by not talking than he would get by talking.
That's exactly right. Well, enjoy the sun, enjoy the cigars. I hope it doesn't rain on you too much in Arizona, and we'll see you again real soon. We'll talk to you real soon, Steve. Enjoy the game.
All right, thanks, Zach. My best to the people up there. Good luck with all the weather. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks so much. There's Steve DeOssie joining us on the hotline.